Hello and welcome to this webinar with the topic Split Heat Pump Active Cooling and Cooling Curve Setting. In the first step, we look at the requirements which are needed to program the active cooling of a split heat pump. The operating mode for the heating circuit must be switched to automatic. The active cooling has to be turned on in the basic settings, and after that the parameter WP58 enable active cooling has to be activated in the contractor level. Enable active cooling by the room temperature. When the BM2 is installed as a remote control in the room, which should be cooled, and the room influence is activated, the cooling operation will be switched on and off because of the set point day temperature. For every cooling circuit, in combination with the BM2, are 3 time programs available. The cooling is during the time program active. Next, the relevant system construction is set in the contractor level with the parameter WP1. The system must be built according to the valve hydraulic chain constructions. The following system configurations are possible: 1, 5, 14, 15, 51, 33, 34. When the system is controlled with the building management system, the system configuration parameter WP1 should be set by 51. The input 0 to 10 volt should be connected with the E2 clamp. The input voltage with the building management system for cooling is between 1.2 volt and 4 volt. When the active cooling is unlocked, the input E1, parameter WP2, for cooling function dew point monitor gets automatically programmed. If no dew point monitor is connected, you have to set a jumper to contact E1. The active cooling will be activated with the parameter WP53, outside temperature release cooling. That means the cooling will be started when the outside temperature is higher than the set point. The cooling mode is only unlocked by the outside temperature. In combination with the BM2 used as a remote control, the outside temperature is crucial. The active cooling is determined by the cooling curve setting. The HCM3 of the heat pump must have the current firmware 1.6 and the BM2 the firmware 2.2. In the following points, we closely have a look at the active cooling settings. At first, we change the operating mode into automatic mode. By turning the rotary selector to the corresponding heating circuit. We select the rotary selector icon and change the operating mode to automatic mode. After that, we activate the active cooling in the basic settings. Press the rotary selector to open the main menu. We open the basic settings and select the heating appliance. Now we can see the active cooling setting option. We activate the active cooling and confirm the entry. Then we activate the heat pump parameter WP58 enable active cooling. From the main menu, we enter the contractor level. Therefore, you need the contractor level code 1111. We select heating appliance and in the second step, the full parameter list. WP58 enable active cooling must be activated and the entry confirmed. If only the active cooling in the basic settings is activated, the cooling function is not active yet. Both settings, in the basic settings and in the contractor level, have to be activated. This settings function should prevent that the function active cooling gets started in the basic settings by a mistake. When the programming unit BM2 is used as a wall-mounted remote control and the room influence is activated, appears the sign day temperature cooling in the basic settings. The value day temperature heating must at least be 2 Kelvin above the value day temperature cooling. This function should avoid to conflict between heating mode and cooling mode. If one or more cooling circuits are available, there are also 3 time programs available. This is programmable in the basic settings, time program cooling. Also at this setting we open at first the main menu and select time programs. The second step is to select the heating circuit. There are 3 time programs available. Now, the selected time program can adjust it individually. Finally, the required time program must be activated. For that, we must choose the right value 1, 2 or 3 in the setting option Active Time Program and confirm the value. Maximum 7 mixer modules can be combined with the split heat pump. In the contractor level, the correct system configuration is set with the parameter WP1. The following configurations are available for the cooling mode: 1, 5, 14, 15, 51, 33 and 34. To select the system construction, we have to open the contractor level. Next, we open the full parameter list and choose the parameter WP1 system configuration. Now we can choose the suitable configuration and confirm the entry. System configuration 1 is the factory setting with a direct heating and hot water circuit. A buffer can optionally be connected in series in the heating return. In the factory setting, the cooling function is not available. When the cooling function gets manually activated and a buffer is connected as well, we recommend to bypass the buffer in the cooling mode with a 3-way converter valve. If this isn't done, you will get a higher energy consumption and the buffer needs to be diffusion insulated. System configuration 5 is identically with the configuration 1, but with this difference that the cooling mode is automatically activated. Here we can also see how the buffer in the cooling mode is bypassed by the 3-way converter valve. The valve is connected at the indoor unit. The solar system is in combination with the SM1 at any time connectable. System configuration 14 is a combination with a BSP, optional with a wood boiler and a solar system. Here is also by the factory setting the cooling mode deactivated. The BSP is connected as a separating tank. It's advisable to uncouple the BSP hydraulic for the cooling mode. Therefore, you have to install 2 3-way valves, one in the heating flow and one in the return. They get connected parallel in the indoor unit. The heating circuit is regulated by the mixer module and a mixer. In the cooling function, the mixer is completely opened. The flow temperature isn't regulated by the mixer. The heat pump regulates the flow temperature. The system configuration 15 is a combination with a separate buffer and optional with the solar system. The number of the heating circuits after the buffer is not important. It's only limited by the maximum number of mixer modules. Currently, the limit of the mixer modules is 7. The system configuration 33 and 34 are for appliances with a bivalent alternative operation. Currently, those hydraulics are only released for the heating operation. They are revised in the moment so that they are appropriate for the cooling operation in the future. The next parameter in the contractor level is WP2. As soon as the cooling function is activated, the function input E1 switches to the dew point monitor. If no dew point monitor is connected, a jumper to contact E1 needs to be set. Additionally, a maximum thermostat can be parallel connected to E1. When the heat pump turned off by the dew point monitor, the compressor stops, but the cooling circle pump goes on. Heating system and hot water system are also blocked. When the compressor gets released for the cooling system again, the reference flow temperature for the cooling system will be raised to 1 Kelvin. That should avoid another turning off because of the dew point monitor. But if it still happens, the reference flow temperature gets raised again about 1 Kelvin, and so on. When the system works without dew point monitor turning off 2 hours in the cooling system, the reference flow temperature gets lower about 1 Kelvin again, until the system is back to the cooling curve condition. If the maximum thermostat would switch off the appliance in the heating mode, the compressor and the heating pump stops. The hot water system is still working. The function E1 can be changed as following. The first step is to open the contractor level and select heating appliance. We open the full parameter list and choose the parameter WP2, function E1. Now we can select the desired function and confirm the entry. Why is the dew point monitor needed at all? The dew point monitor is required to avoid damage caused by condensing moisture. Where is the dew point monitor installed? A dew point monitor is required for surface cooling systems, for example, underfloor heating systems. If several rooms with different room air humidity belong to the cooling circuit, several dew point monitors must be installed and connected in series. The installation is carried out in the space to be cooled at the cooling circuit flow. The active cooling is activated with the parameter WP53 over the set outside temperature. Only the outside temperature is able to start the cooling function. That means the appliance mustn't be in the heating mode. The summer-winter changeover should change the operation mode to the summer mode. The summer and the winter changeover has to be set lower than the parameter WP53 outside temperature to enable cooling. The switch on and the switch off of the cooling function works with the hysteresis of plus minus 0.5 kelvins. At the first step, we open the main menu. The second step is to open the contractor level. We select heating appliance and open the full parameter list. The parameter WP53 outside temperature to enable cooling can be changed now. Please don't forget to confirm the value. Please notice the following points. The cooling curve can only be set centrally for the heat pump. The heating and mixing circuits doesn't have a separate cooling curve setting. The mixer of the mixer circuit doesn't regulate the flow temperature in the cooling mode, but opens 100%. If a BM2 with active room temperature influence is connected to the mixer circuit, the mixer pump switched on and off to control the room temperature. The parameter WP54 minimum flow temperature for cooling also remains active in conjunction with the cooling curve setting. The set minimal flow temperature for cooling won't be exceeded. Factory setting is 20 degrees. If the split heat pump operates only with an AM, the cooling mode is only possible up to the software 1.5. With an AM and the current software 1.6, the cooling operation without BM2 is no longer possible. Let's have a look how to set the cooling curve on the BM2. Therefore, 4 values should be changed and adapted individually to the system. Starting temperature flow, starting point cooling curve, end point cooling curve, and temperature flow. Those values can be set in the contractor level. In the contractor level, we select the cooling curve. Let's start with the setting option starting temperature flow. That's the temperature of the cooling circuit with activate cooling. Cooling temperature remains constant until the outside temperature exceeds the starting point cooling curve. The setting range is between 7 degrees and 35 degrees. The factory setting is 20 degrees. Please take care of the cooling curve setting on the installed components and their limits. By turning and pressing the rotary selector, you can change the value easily. In the next step, we set the starting point cooling curve. That's the outside temperature from which the cooling temperature is increased until the outside temperature reaches the end point cooling curve. The setting range is between 10 degrees and 45 degrees. The factory setting is 35 degrees. Please take always care of the cooling curve setting on the installed components and their limits. The value can be changed by turning and pressing the rotary selector. In the third step, we set the endpoint cooling curve. From this outside temperature, the value of the cooling temperature is controlled to end temperature flow. The setting range is between 30 degrees and 45 degrees. The factory setting is here 45 degrees. Please take care of the cooling curve setting on the installed components and their limits. You can change the value by turning and pressing the rotary selector. At last, we have to set the end temperature flow. That's the temperature of the cooling circuit which, at an external temperature, is higher than or equal to the value end point cooling curve is set as set point. The setting range, therefore, is between 7 degrees and 35 degrees. Factory setting is 30 degrees. And also please take care of the cooling curve setting on the installed components and their limits. Also, this value can be changed by turning and pressing the rotary selector. The following valve factory settings are stored. Starting temperature flow 20 degrees. Starting point cooling curve 35 degrees. End point cooling curve 45 degrees. End temperature flow 30 degrees. Factory settings should always be changed and adapted individually to the system. In this chart we see our cooling curve settings. The starting temperature flow is set at 20 degrees. The starting point cooling curve is set on an outside temperature of 35 degrees and the end point cooling curve at an outside temperature of 45 degrees. The end temperature flow is set at 30 degrees. Of course, the cooling curve can also be set such that the supply temperature drops as the outside temperature rises. Now the cooling curve is activated and we did the most important settings. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.